Jay, welcome to the show.
Tim, fantastic to be with you in this golden age, Tim. It's
It is
great
a
to be here
golden
in this
age.
golden age.
It is a golden age. We're going to talk a lot about that. The theme today is if you can sell, you should sell, specifically in 2025. So I want to get down to the bottom of why somebody should sell. And we're going to harp a lot on this topic. So if you follow us out there throughout the year, you're going to hear us touching upon this theme because we're very bullish upon this concept that if you have value inside your business, that now may be the best time ever in history for you to sell. Maybe you can expand on that just a little bit and maybe touch upon what's happening in the market that makes it so ripe.
To quote the great Charles Dickens, Tim, the best of times, the worst of times. So where should we start with? The worst of times or the best of times? What do you think would be
Let's go with the best.
pick
Let's
your
go with the best of times. So what we have a new administration,
yes.
and some people are feeling very good about that. Others may not. But let's talk about what we predict potentially is going to happen this year with the new administration.
Well, I
That's kind
think
of
that listen, there's politics and there's business. We're not going to talk politics. We're just
exactly.
going to talk business. It is anything, the future has a certain degree of uncertainty in terms of going from a energy of being anti-business to an energy of being pro-business, pro-deal making, pro let's try some things, pro let's take some risks, pro let's come out of the box. I've been a student of American politics my whole life, and I can never remember as stark and dramatic a shift from one energy to another. Kind of more of this sleepy, wet blanket. Let's just kind of let's not have an energy around the business of America is business to an energy of someone. And again, not there's legitimate reasons why many folks will find the current president not their cup of tea, and I totally respect that. I have many of them in my family, and I have my reservations as well about many things, how he is, how he does things. Wouldn't do it that way. What is, I think, beyond debate is that you got a guy that's a deal maker, you got a guy that is trying new things, and he's putting an energy out there that when it comes to this world of business selling, of deal making, which is what business selling is, it's a it's just a much more, hey, let's give it a shot type of energy, and you're seeing that. I mean, watch Davos, the Europeans' huge World Economic Forum, and everybody's saying America is the place that people around the world want to do business right now because it just feels like of all the major economies, this is the place where there is that best sense that everybody's aligned. Let's do some business, much more so than Europe or China, major other big economies. And so I think if ever there was a time in which that the dominoes are lining up for there to be deals getting done. It's this year, which is going to drive up multiples, drive up the percentage likelihood of getting a business sale done. So we'll talk about risk factors in a second. If it is something you're considering, this is a window of time because who knows, Tim, what the future is going to hold.
Right.
26, 27, 28, we don't know. We know right now we got some conditions that if you're interested in getting a deal done, this is a time where a deal is possible to get done.
So with that sentiment, that rising sentiment, that positive sentiment that we feel, because it's not just the way we feel, it's all the conversations we have, it's everything we've been reading. It's going to unlock a few things. One of those unlocks is going to be the dry powder. The estimate right now is what, two
Two
trillion.
trillion,
I mean, that's a pretty
two
big.
trillion.
So what is an unlock of 2 trillion in dry powder? What does that look like? What could that potentially look like in this new environment?
Well, what you've seen is this, the last 20 years, one of the biggest themes in finance is this gigantic increase in private equity from, something like 1,000 private equity venture private family offices worldwide to 5,000. So 5 times as many firms out there looking for deals. So this is just, private equity has gone from really a pretty small part of the overall financial markets to, the estimates are it could be as much as 20% of all capital is in private. It's a gigantic number. So there's just been enormous numbers of funds raised. There's been this dynamic where this family office dynamic where you've got kind of this bespoke approach where you've got very, very large pools of capital that are looking for, non-correlated alpha, right?
Yeah.
So, and that amount, and there's different calculations of it, but is sitting at around $2 trillion worldwide that is specifically tasked with investing in private equity and really hasn't been doing so in the last couple of years. So the idea is at some point, there's a whole industry of folks that their job is based upon um, making investments, and they haven't been making them. And at some point, the dam's going to break, and
Hmm.
then it becomes a supply and demand. What's your company worth? It's worth what somebody's going to pay for it. If there's a lot more buyers out there than there are sellers, pricing is going to go up, timeline to close is going to go down, and all those positive things of deal making happen when for the seller, for the operating company, when there's more buyers than sellers.
And you feel that will trickle down to the lower mid market versus, a lot of times we talk private equity and we're talking, 100 million, $1 billion massive deals, but what about the 5, 10, $20 million business?
It's a great question. I think that private equity has matured, and there is this dynamic of inorganic growth the skill set of actually consummating an acquisition is much more developed now than it's ever been. So, this is just the model of big public companies. They grow by buying other public companies and or very large private companies, and those large private companies they grow by almost all once companies get to a certain size, whatever that is, $200 million and above, they usually have a corp dev department with people specifically tasked with M&A, with inorganic growth, or they have an investment bank on retainer to do so. Um, and then they look for mid-sized private companies to buy. And then those mid-sized private companies look for smaller private companies. So it's just to the degree the top is those big deals are getting done, inevitably it flows down throughout the whole market.
Yeah. Okay. So I think we set the framework here appropriately that there's a rising sentiment, there's an unlock of dry powder, there's going to be a trickle down from the top down. We're potentially in a more pro business friendly administration. Uh, let's talk a little bit just about tax implications because I know that you're hot on that as well. But I want to add that to the positive side of the positive column here. As
Mhm.
we're talking about why now is a really good time to sell because tax implications of a sale are always very scary. But
Huge, huge. So, I mean, the big one is that, the corporate income tax rate, which was reduced in the Tax Act of 2017, was going to be sunsetted, expired this year. Looks highly likely it won't be. So, corporate income tax rate will stay at 21%. It was scheduled to go back up to 37%. That's huge.
it's huge.
Uh, estate tax, which was scheduled the exemption was to come back to around 7 million. That sunsetting would have brought it back to that level, is now going to be up in the 13, $14 million range, which also leads to opportunities to, the structure for generational wealth with trusts and different types of mechanisms like that in a way that the proceeds of a business sale can be protected from 50% estate tax. Those are two huge factors. There's a lot of other components of tax that we'll see where it's going to go. But there's talks about opportunity zones, and they're talking about that in California. You know, can't there's been talk about making the entire country an opportunity zone, so we're moving the whole cap gains piece.
Mhm.
See where that goes, but that's a huge issue. If California, for example, where if they were to waive income on cap gains for the sake of the situation with the fires, other reasons, competitiveness, saving 13% on income tax at the state level. It's just a whole move to, I think, more pro-business tax structure that can make a gigantic difference in valuation and getting to a place where, hey, if we're going to exit, get some liquidity, now would be a great time to do so.
So that stacks our why now is a great time column.
Yes.
But what also stacks it is the downside, is the dark side. And I thought we could run through a handful of these dark side elements, which are very real and very practical. I mean, most It's funny, I'm reading a book right now, and the study was they asked people when they thought they were going to die. And this was like an actuary, right? I think the number was 78 years old or whatever. And they even told these individuals, but actually they came back and did a poll and everybody surveyed saying they were going to die at 95, 105. Like people wildly overshot what the actuary was actually saying. And they said, well, why are people so overly optimistic? The truth of the matter is there's a lot of risks out there. And I know we're having a conversation recently about risk stacking.
Yes,
So I just want to talk about a handful of these risks. I'm gonna give
yes.
you some topics. I just want you to riff briefly on some of these. Let's start with AI and technology, the obsolescence of just AI, if you're especially if you're a legacy business or a legacy business owner being faced and challenged with AI.
You see things, 2 days ago, 500 billion into data centers, large language models, what do they call it? General intelligence? Generative, what is it called?
Generative AI,
Generative AI. Um, you know, Tim, you and I mean, how many times today have you already utilized AI?
five probably, 6,
Times. Me too. And so, obviously 2 years ago, it was probably zero.
0.
Um, and it's going at such a rate that we have to be a tremendous promise for the world, um, just whether it be things like medical advances, discoveries, efficiencies, incredible the things that it can do. I mean, I have a Tesla with self-driving. I drove downtown LA yesterday. Transformative.
Mhm.
Hour ride through the traffic. So it's incredible technology. Flip side, there's a real probability, whatever it is, that vast swaths of the economy and jobs and companies will disappear. That's the reality.
Yeah.
And you got to ask yourself, man, this is where you got to look to your point about you're going to die. You got to say, what do you got left in that fastball, too? Okay. I'm sorry. You and I, Tim, we feel pretty confident about our ability to incorporate these tools. We also have a lot of folks that we know, maybe a little bit older than us, so in their 60s, they ain't going to be able to hack this. They can't. It's too much. They're not technologically fluent enough, and they're not going to be able to do it. And there's going to be a a group of, you know, here's the reality: young people from India, from Eastern Europe, that are going to be able to build AI businesses, AI technologies that just either replace your business or make it very difficult to make any money at it.
Yeah.
So that's a gigantic risk factor for a lot of businesses that are led by folks that aren't that technologically fluid. When before it was kind of cutesy, right? Oh, I don't know, Turo, man. It ain't cute anymore.
Yeah, it's not.
It's not cute.
Yeah.
It's like you're done.
Yeah. I mean,
Pack it in.
I can even go and just hear conversations with business owners that we've worked with over the years where that's a great point. It's not cute. And they would kind of laugh and chuckle. Oh, I'm not great with email. I'm not great with a calendar. I'm not great with my cell phone. It's like that's fine. Don't be great. Do whatever you want. But don't think that your business is going to have this exponential leap, this exponential growth if you can't even get up to speed with an iPhone. And you're trying to, increase the enterprise value of this organization and take it into the next 10, 20 years, but yet you don't know how to use a Google Calendar. I don't know what to tell you, right? And I think that starts to bleed into cybersecurity, which would be the next topic. That's a real threat. It's a technological threat. It's beyond existential. It's scary.
The very small businesses, the lifestyle businesses, they don't have a lot to lose, right? Like they got whatever it is, they got a few $1,000s in the bank. It's sole proprietor. So, these types of threats, not a big deal. So that's one polarity, I guess. Okay. Then you got companies that are a little bit larger, let's say doing $100 million plus revenue. They actually have budgets for IT staff,
Mm-hmm.
for outsourced cybersecurity firms to help them. Okay. Then you got this middle group, companies that have some significant net worth. The companies are worth 10, 20, 30, $40 million, but they may be led by one of those cutesy older, uh, owner operator CEOs that's not very technologically fluent. So they can't really manage an IT staff.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and and they don't have the budget because this is big budgets to do
Yeah, that's what I was going
cybersecurity.
to
But think
say.
about the budgets like Bank of America, the budgets they're putting. We're talking about literally billions of dollars they're putting into this. They can't do that.
It's low on the priority list to
It,
invest into cybersecurity.
however, and we know many examples of this from clients in this range, this whatever it is, 10 to $100 million range. These companies, they are targets because they have this, remember, the bad guys know exactly what we just said, right? They know that the big guys are hard to get at because they have systems to secure. The little guys aren't worth it, but these middle guys, they are just, they're plumb for the picking,
Mm,
right?
yeah.
So this is where usually it can tip the balance. What's the probability of a cybersecurity hit costing that firm a few $1 million? Whatever. Let's say it's 20%, okay, in the next few years.
Hmm.
You know, First of all, it can be debilitating that can just turn the cash flow upside down. That can go from a profitable business to a company losing money. Now you can't sell it. Um, the second point is you start saying to yourself, because of that, the natural end game for that company is to be acquired. So it can exist within a bigger entity that has those resources. And that's what cybersecurity for a lot of mid-sized firms can be another one of those like AI, a tipping point threat that says, hey, let's get out. Because
Yeah.
it's like stack it. AI, 20% chance is going to wipe you out. Cybersecurity, 10 to 20%. All of a sudden, you're at the casino, the odds are getting pretty darn long.
Yes. And so let's keep stacking. Let's talk about lawfare, regulatory compliance, just
Well,
forces
you
moving
know,
against
it's
each
just amazing. I mean, we watch again the political scene, the legal scene, culturally that it's people's default is just to go to a lawsuit for anything.
other. Hmm.
I mean, I'll tell you a little story. Okay, I had a great uncle that went to the hospital with chest pains, significant malpractice on the part of the medical staff. Thought it was heartburn. The guy had this was back in the early 70s. He has a heart attack, dies because they didn't diagnose that he was having a heart attack. He died in the hospital, like on the hospital bed of a heart attack. There was discussion in the family about suing the hospital, and the decision was not to do that because that's not the kind of people we are. Okay, ain't many of those people left in this generation.
People left.
Ain't many of those left. Everybody's suing on the drop of a hat. And I thought it came up with some of these pardons that came out. Even if you win, you still lose.
Absolutely.
And let me point out, AI is another existential threat, another stacking threat. Because with AI, the lawyers, they can run lawsuits far more efficiently. So when before it would take one lawyer doing the various legal drafts, whatever, they could run a certain number of cases at a time. Now with AI, they can run 100 times as many cases at a time.
Yeah.
So again, sweet spot, big companies can deal with it. Little guys, nobody goes after, it's not worth it. It's those middle guys, another 10 to 20% stacking threat.
Yeah. Okay. So then let's move it over to geopolitical risks, wars, chaos in the world. Uh,
I
because
mean,
we've seen this
yeah.
for the last couple of years. I mean, we've seen sentiment just kind of come to a
Oh
halt.
my God. I mean, that's the thing. We got
It's
really high business confidence right now, but the world is so interconnected. Social media is so profoundly powerful on mood. It's everywhere. So there's a negative shock, whether it be in the Middle East, whether it be in Taiwan, whether it be in Ukraine, that it has a monumental impact on mood and confidence and financial markets. As in, you know, Chinese invade Taiwan, highly likely the stock market drops 20, 30, 40%. That happens, M&A activity in the middle market stops. And that opportunity is gone for
yeah,
whatever amount of time. So it just is what it is. It's the flip side. So, we're all I mentioned, like the golden age at the start, events are like, America is America, but there's events in the world that are out of Americans' hands that just, that are going to happen. And, we all pray that they don't, but we also have to say, what are the odds of, okay, let's do it, Tim. What are the odds of there being a negative geopolitical shock in Taiwan, in the Middle East, in Russia, elsewhere in the next couple of years. Stacking up. It's high.
It's high. It's
It's
high.
at least that it's another 10 to 20% stack.
Exactly. So let's put some bookends on the stacking here. What we're saying, the reason we're talking about this, if you've made it this far, is as a business owner, you're not just dealing with one risk. And sometimes it feels that way because most of your life is putting out the fire, right? You wake up, you got a couple fires, you put out a couple fires, and you get back to work, you put out a few more fires. What we're talking about things is well beyond those fires. So when you stack currency risk, geopolitical risk, lawfare risk, cybersecurity risk,
Mhm.
the technological risk, then you have just the basic risk that we all deal with as human, your health, right? Health
Mhm.
is a real thing. The health of your family, because a lot of times people want to get out because maybe one of their families or a spouse, or the health of a business partner. Right? You just have this whole health component.
Key
That's
employee.
yeah, then you have life goals. I mean, do you want to be buried under the desk, right? You have things you want to get on with. So when you stack all this, it's really not leaning in your favor. So you have a profile of a business owner that they can deal with it. They're mentally prepared. They have the team. They know about all the risks, and they're willing to just keep plowing on through. They're going to be your younger, hungrier CEOs that have the fastball. They still pitch in the fastball. Then you have a whole other group of business owners that they really should seriously consider these risks and cash out because the environment is so good right now. That now might be the best time.
Well, this is where you get a big swing, right? This is where, those probabilities on a sporting event, like you have a 99% chance for the team to win, and then there's some crazy event, there's an onside kick, there's a pick six intercept, and then the odds swing wildly in the other direction. And so you go from this is where it's like, the issue is with some of these businesses, they have a lot they've got a pretty impressive balance sheet. The companies can be sold for 10, 20, 30, $40 million right now, right?
Right.
And so the swing is dramatic. It's like it goes from that to becoming unsellable. So it literally becomes from a 10 to $50 million liquidity event to true illiquidity. So to the degree that the business is worth what somebody will pay for it, they fall back into that category of a business that can't be sold. So it's a gigantic swing, and it
Yeah.
can happen very quickly. And that's where you say to yourself, um, again, this is just like behavioral finance. Like it's the math is it's not that what we just did there. It's not that complicated. The math is like the risk, the expected value with all these risks becomes highly negative. So if you can get out, then it just makes financial sense. And then you got to ask yourself how much you committed to the non-financial reasons, the inertia.
Yeah.
Is that it's fine, but if it's like you're taking a $50 million risk for those things, okay, let's take a step back and say, is it worth it? And then B, what's the other side look like? And let's at least paint that other side a little
Yeah. You have a quote which is your future expected value is zero.
bit.
Break that down for me a little bit.
Well, it's just that, if you have like you have a $10 million asset, then you got because of these various systemic risks, you got a 60% chance that over the next 2 years, one of those are going to hit, and that amount, that $50 million value, because of one of those negative events, just takes your profitability from whatever it is, 10% margin to putting you at 5% underwater. You literally go from that asset having a close to 100% probability of being sold at a reasonable multiple to literally zero.
Yeah.
So, and the math now at some point with the math, as every year goes by, all those risk factors, eventually it's going to come up craps for you at the table. Eventually the dice are going to work against you. And so I just want to really make this point, Tim, that this is all very intellectual, that it there's I would really make the case that you can have your cake and eat it too, that by getting to this place, you can get both proper financial diversification, classical diversification, hedging, protection, okay? And you can get to a place where You can just keep the things you really like about running your company and get rid of all the stuff you don't. You can actually do that. You
Yeah.
can actually throw money at those various components and just do the strategic piece, the leadership piece, the mentoring piece, the meaning piece, the place to go. You can keep all that and get rid of 90% of the risks.
And you get rid of 90% of the risks just for absolute clarity by exiting, by selling.
Yes. What was your stat? What percentage of businesses, what percentage of net worth the typical business owner have in their business?
70 to 80%.
Yeah. Okay. So right there, there's no way in your financial portfolio would you ever invest 70 to 80% of your net worth into one stock, but that's what you're doing.
And statistically, 70% of businesses that list for sale don't sell. So just because you want to sell doesn't mean it's going to happen. And that's the other thing, because I hear a lot of business owners say, oh, we're not ready. The time's not ready. There will be a time, right? They constantly look into the future. We'll get there whenever the time comes. We're just, going to have a check cut. And you're like, yeah, but that may not happen, because 70% is a huge number. It's a huge number. And that means there's a lot of factors why your deal is not going to get done beyond just you. You may not be the sole reason why 70% of the deals don't get done, right? It could be the person on the other side. It could be the deal. It could be the timing. It could be the market. There's so many things. The risks, right? So if you think you can get out, you should start organizing and then hedging and then building a team and taking this conversation serious.
I would say that the exercise itself is incredibly nutritious. So there's not a world, if you're working with talented professionals, and we happen to know many of those, that they're going to run a process that is either going to get you to the promised land in a big check, or they're going to run a process that's going to clearly identify what needs to be done to get there. And it's going to give you some, you know, some really tough love. Like, you know, Tim, I'll disagree with you on this. You very well may be the problem,
Yeah.
Mr. Ms. CEO. Could actually really could be you. Okay. And, you know, and there's ways around that. Okay. Now, I'll give you one that we is out there. There's a lot of very talented entrepreneurs, often younger, that will come in and work out a profit share where your business can't be sold. Okay, let's bring in new management while you still maintain ownership to get the business, put the technology advancements in place, rethink the marketing, rebuild the team, all the things that sometimes again losing the fastball. Look in the mirror. Maybe you're not. If you were going to have done them, you would have done them by now.
Right.
Okay, get to a place, whatever it is, 2 years from now, and then sell the business, and then be on a profit share. And there's many of these types of folks out there, business uh, folks that want to come in, and that's their model. They want to come in and do that kind of work and share the upside on the sale that happens down the road. Whether it's something you take up or not, it's an incredibly valuable exercise for any business to go through.
100%. 100%. So the call to action here is what then?
We do this because this is a passion of ours, Tim, right? Like we love this. This is what we do for fun. We love it. And we have a lot of credibility because we've been doing it for decades. So we'll talk to you and pretty quickly, because we've done this a lot, we can give you pretty quickly on our nickel pricing range for the company, likelihood of a sale, getting that pricing, how long is it going to take, and very importantly, some modeling of post-tax proceeds. And this is where there's a lot of mission in it for us. We're also going to paint some pictures, give you some examples of folks that said, my business is my life, and what a post-sale life would look like, and how that post-sale life isn't about you just fading away on the front porch and waiting to die, but actually gets you to a place where you are able to pivot to the greatest form of business ever invented by human hand, that venture capital private equity model, where you're able to use some of those proceeds to invest in other companies, be engaged, have tremendous positive value, expected value, diversify away from a lot of these risks, and we'll paint that picture for you. And so just to refresh, probability of sale, likelihood of sale, timeline of sale, and what a post-sale financial plan, and I mean even some comments on life plan would look like.
That's wonderful. And if you're out there, if this is making sense, if you own a business and you feel like you just want to speak to a professional and get more information, we'll have the information links down below for you to reach out, contact somebody. Let's just have a conversation and let's get you sold in 2025.
Love it.
Jay, thanks so much.
Tim, thank you.